Have you ever felt entirely trapped by something you said or maybe believed or even did in the past?
Oh, definitely. Like a hostage to your own history.
Right. Simply because you are terrified of looking like you changed your mind. I mean, picture this. You are sitting at a dinner table with old friends or maybe family.
Sounds stressful already.
Yeah, exactly. And someone brings up this really passionate stance you took, say, half a decade ago.
Right.
Maybe it was a fierce political opinion or a rigid career declaration or even just a harsh judgment you made about a movie.
We all have those.
We do, but the truth is your perspective has shifted entirely since then. You have learned more, you have grown.
You're literally a different person now.
Exactly. But in that moment, instead of simply admitting your worldview has expanded, you feel this suffocating pressure in your chest.
So you just double down.
You double down. You start passionately defending a ghost, basically. You use all your rhetorical energy to protect a version of yourself that does not even exist anymore.
And it is all just because you cannot bear the friction of disappointing people's expectations.
Yes, precisely. If you have ever felt that quiet, agonizing pressure to remain exactly who people think you are absolutely not alone. Welcome to the deep dive.
It is a great topic
It
today.
really is. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
Always appreciate that.
So today, our mission is to explore the profound and honestly, often painful tension between consistency and growth.
It is a huge tension,
Huge. And we are grounding this exploration heavily in Ralph Waldo Emerson's classic text, Self-Reliance.
which is such an incredible foundational piece of work.
It really is. But we are not just going to sit here and read 19th century philosophy. We are going to weave Emerson's ideas directly into modern psychological analysis.
Right, like looking at workplace conformity.
Yes, and the neuroscience of social rejection. Plus the hidden devastating costs of intellectual cowardice.
It's such a rich intersection to explore, really, because the core human dilemma has not changed one bit since Emerson published that essay.
Not at all.
We are looking at how a philosophical text written well over a century ago perfectly diagnoses the very real physiological anxieties we feel right now.
Like in modern boardrooms.
Exactly. In boardrooms, in our romantic relationships, and honestly, inside the quiet chambers of our own minds.
Yeah, it hits very close to home.
Because Emerson saw, with devastating clarity, the human beings are fundamentally terrified of their own evolution.
Wait, terrified of our own evolution?
Yes, we crave the safety of the known. We desperately mistake rigidity for strength.
Oh, I see.
But true grounding, true psychological resilience requires us to be exceptionally fluid.
Which is not how we are usually taught to behave.
Not at all. So the goal for this conversation is to dismantle the mechanics of that fear, to understand structurally why you might be holding yourself back.
Okay.
And to give you the framework to stop prioritizing the comfort of the crowd over your own authentic development.
Okay, let us unpack this. Let us start right at the centerpiece of Emerson's philosophy on this topic.
Famous quote.
Yes, it is arguably one of the most famous and frankly most frequently misused quotes in American literature.
Oh, absolutely. People constantly take it out of context.
They really do. So Emerson writes, "A foolish consistency is the hobgoblin of little minds, adored by little statesmen and philosophers and divines."
It sounds so fantastic.
It is incredibly poetic. But looking past the rhetoric, what is the actual mechanism he is describing here?
What?
Like when we say foolish consistency, what is the actual distinction between that and just being a reliable, trustworthy person?
That is the key question. The distinction lies entirely in the motivation behind the behavior.
Okay.
Notice the specific adjective Emerson chooses. He does not claim that all consistency is inherently toxic.
Right, he says foolish consistency.
Exactly. He is targeting foolish consistency. This is the specific act of clinging to past beliefs, past statements, or past actions merely for the sake of appearing stable and predictable to the external world.
Oh, so it is performative.
Yes, it is consistency driven by ego, pride, and most importantly, fear.
Rather than by a pursuit of truth.
Precisely. When someone practices foolish consistency, they are actively refusing to process new data.
Because the new data threatens the old narrative.
Yes. They are looking at the person they were yesterday or last month or maybe a decade ago, and they are treating that past version of themselves with more reverence and respect than they are giving to their present, breathing, evolving reality.
Wow. So you are essentially making a declaration that who you were is legally binding and what you know now is totally irrelevant.
That is a highly accurate way to frame it. You hit the nail on the head.
So it is essentially a form of self-sabotage, but it is heavily disguised as a virtue.
Yes, society applauds it.
Right. We think we are demonstrating steadfastness or loyalty or strong character, but we're actually just building our own psychological prison cell.
And then proudly locking the door from the inside.
Yeah. That is wild. Why do we do that? What is the root cause?
Well, to understand the root cause of this behavior, we have to look at the social environment. Emerson had this profound, piercing insight into human social dynamics.
What did he see?
He understood that we build these prison cells because we are terrified of the alternative, which is judgment.
Just simple judgment.
Well, profound judgment. We are deeply terrified of being misunderstood by our tribe. He uses this brilliant astronomical metaphor.
Oh, I love this part.
Yeah. He notes that society computes our orbit based entirely on our past acts.
Like a planet.
Exactly like a planet. Think of how an astronomer calculates the trajectory of a celestial body. They track where it has been over a specific period, they run the math, and they predict exactly where it will appear in the night sky tomorrow.
Right. It is very predictable.
And human beings do the exact same thing to each other to reduce cognitive load.
Wait, we calculate each other's orbits.
Yes. We observe someone's past behavior, we calculate their social orbit, and we expect them to show up at the exact coordinates we have assigned to them.
Because it makes the world feel safe.
It makes the world feel safe and predictable.
And when someone suddenly deviates from that expected orbit, the people around them experience intense friction.
Oh, massive friction.
The math stops working, and it makes everyone deeply uncomfortable.
It creates a tremendous amount of cognitive dissonance for the observer. When you change, it forces everyone around you to recalculate your identity.
Which is exhausting for them.
It is. Furthermore, your growth serves as a very uncomfortable mirror.
Oh, I see where you are going with this.
Right. If you are willing to break your orbit and evolve, it implicitly asks them why they are still running in circles.
That is confronting.
Very confronting. So, to avoid inflicting that discomfort on others, and to avoid the intense friction of their disapproval, we just stay in our lane.
We keep orbiting exactly as predicted.
Exactly as predicted, even if that specific orbit feels completely hollow or wrong to our present self.
Emerson uses some incredibly vivid, honestly almost macabre imagery to describe the sheer weight of living this way.
The corpse metaphor.
Yes. He asks the reader why they should keep their head over their shoulder, constantly looking backward. And then he calls it dragging around the corpse of your memory.
It is such a heavy, visceral phrase.
The corpse of your memory. When you force yourself to align with an outdated opinion or a past decision that no longer resonates with your current intellect, you are quite literally carrying dead weight.
That is exactly what it is.
You are dragging a lifeless, decaying thing into the present moment instead of just operating dynamically in the now.
Because a corpse has no life, right? It has no vitality, no ability to adapt or respond to the present environment.
Right, it is completely inert.
Exactly. And by dragging it with you, you are allowing a dead thing to dictate the movements of a living being.
Which is crazy when you think about it.
It really is. Emerson's argument is essentially a plea to drop the corpse.
Drop a corpse.
Yes. He argues that we must bring our past into the thousand-eyed present for judgment, rather than allowing the past to sit on the bench and judge our present.
The thousand-eyed present.
Yeah. The present moment has the thousands of eyes, the new data, the new context, the new emotional maturity.
And the past is totally blind to all of that.
Completely blind.
Okay, let me push back on this concept, though. Because as much as I appreciate the poetry of dropping the corpse, let us look at the practical reality of human survival here.
Sure.
Is it not actually quite dangerous to be constantly misunderstood by everyone around you?
It feels very dangerous.
Right. We are social creatures. If we are constantly breaking our orbit, constantly abandoning our past stances, and acting in ways that confound our friends, our family, our professional networks.
You are asking if we risk total isolation.
Exactly. Do we not risk total isolation? It feels incredibly reckless to just abandon social consistency altogether.
That fear of isolation is the exact fuel that keeps the hobgoblin of foolish consistency alive.
So it is a biological fear.
It is a very valid biological fear. Yep. But Emerson meets that argument head-on with a brilliant historical defense.
What does he say?
He asks the reader directly, is it so bad then to be misunderstood?
And his answer is no.
His answer is an emphatic no. He answers by listing figures who fundamentally altered the course of human history, precisely because They allowed themselves to be misunderstood by the masses.
Give me some examples.
He says Pythagoras was misunderstood, Socrates was misunderstood, Jesus, Luther, Copernicus, Galileo, Newton.
Wow, heavy hitters.
Right. Every single pure and wise spirit that ever took flesh was deeply misunderstood. Emerson concludes that to be great is to be misunderstood.
The Galileo example always stands out to me.
Oh, it is the perfect example.
Because his intellectual bravery was not just a matter of having a quirky opinion at a dinner party.
No, the stakes were slightly higher.
Slightly. It was a matter of life and death and of overturning an entire civilization's understanding of reality.
Let us examine the mechanics of what Galileo actually did, because it perfectly illustrates Emerson's point.
Walk us through it.
Galileo did not wake up one morning and decide to be a contrarian just to upset the establishment.
He wasn't just trolling the church.
Exactly. He did not say, how can I really anger the church today?
Right.
He simply built a telescope, looked at the moons of Jupiter and the phases of Venus, and observed the present truth.
You guys looked at the data.
The data clearly showed that the Earth was not the center of the universe. It orbited the sun.
And that observation violently contradicted the entirely consistent, entirely rigid, and ultimately foolish consensus of his era.
Yes. The entire social, theological, and political order of the 17th century was built on the premise of an Earth-centric universe.
So he had a massive corpse of memory he was supposed to carry.
A societal corpse, yes. But his greatness lay in his pure intellectual honesty.
He refused to carry it.
He completely refused to drag the corpse of outdated Aristotelian astronomy into his present reality, regardless of the immense, terrifying social cost.
Which, for him, meant facing the Inquisition and living under house arrest for the rest of his life.
Right. He paid a massive price, but he remained scientifically self-reliant.
Which brings us directly to the modern day. Because most of us listening are not going to be hauled before an Inquisition for tracking the moons of Jupiter.
Thankfully, no.
But we were facing immense, pervasive pressure to conform in our daily lives.
Constantly.
How does this battle against foolish consistency play out right now? Say, in a corporate office, a boardroom, or within a creative team?
Well, the stakes in a modern boardroom might not be house arrest, but the psychological pressure to conform is incredibly high.
Absolutely.
And the consequences for collective failure are massive. There is a fascinating corporate research platform called Simplicable.
Okay, I am familiar with them.
They serve as a massive knowledge base for business concepts and workplace dynamics. They recently analyzed the mechanics of nonconformity in the workplace.
And what did they find?
Their findings are essentially a modern, empirical validation of Emerson's philosophy.
Really?
Yes. They found that when individuals refuse to change their opinions at work because they are desperate to appear consistent and agreeable, it inevitably breeds catastrophic groupthink.
Oh, groupthink is the worst.
It is terrible. You will see an entire team of highly intelligent professionals march a company straight off a financial cliff.
Just to keep the peace.
Simply because every single person in the room prioritized group harmony and narrative consistency over critical analysis.
Nobody wanted to break orbit.
Exactly. The modern antidote to this, according to the research, is a concept they call intellectual bravery.
Intellectual bravery. I really appreciate that terminology.
It is a great term.
It frames dissenting thought not as stubbornness or being difficult, but as a courageous act.
Because it is.
It sounds like a psychological muscle that requires deliberate conditioning.
It absolutely requires conditioning because it goes against our default programming.
So how do they define it?
Intellectual bravery is defined as the pursuit of a high intellectual or professional standard in situations where doing so requires you to completely transcend group expectations.
Transcending group expectations, that is hard to do.
Very hard. It means having the candor to say what you actually think, observe, or believe, rather than regurgitating what the room expects you to say.
So imagine an employee who has been executing a long-standing, beloved company strategy for years.
Okay, they have been the champion of it.
Right. Suddenly, the market shifts. They look at the data and realize the strategy is doomed.
The old orbit is failing.
Yes. The intellectually brave action is to walk into a meeting and say, I know I championed this idea for 3 years. I know we are all comfortable with it.
But the data has changed.
And therefore, I have changed my mind. This is no longer working. They are intentionally breaking the consistent narrative to speak a new, highly unpopular truth.
And the immediate reaction from the group is almost always defensive resistance.
Oh, completely. People will point out the inconsistency.
Right, they will say, but last year you said this was the future of the company.
They will try to use the person's past words as a weapon to force them back into compliance.
Precisely. The group will attempt to chain them to the corpse of their own memory.
That is a terrifying dynamic.
And this dynamic does not just happen in corporate strategy meetings. We do this to ourselves internally all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Think about the psychology behind evolving personal goals and the sunk cost fallacy.
Oh, the sunk cost fallacy is brutal when combined with a desire for consistency.
It really is. Like, you set a life goal when you are 20 years old.
Right.
Maybe you decide you are going to become a corporate lawyer. Or you're going to move to a specific city and buy a specific type of house.
Very common goals.
By the time you are 28, your entire worldview has shifted.
You've grown up.
You have traveled, you have experienced burnout, you have learned new things about your own nervous system and what actually brings you peace.
You are fundamentally a different person.
You have fundamentally outgrown the initial goal. But you keep studying for the bar exam, miserable and stressed.
Or you keep saving for that house.
Purely to remain consistent with the narrative you loudly declared to your parents a decade ago.
That is the ultimate tragedy of a life lived for the gallery rather than for the self.
Lived for the gallery, I like that.
Personal growth explicitly demands that we allow our present self to veto our past self.
To veto it?
Yes. Emerson argues that we must speak what tomorrow thinks in hard words again, though it contradict everything you said today.
That is the absolute essence of human evolution right there.
You cannot possibly evolve if you feel contractually obligated to agree with a younger, less informed version of yourself.
Because your past self was operating with incomplete data.
Exactly.
I want to introduce a metaphor here to try and map this out structurally for the listener.
Go for it.
Instead of the old cliche of a software update, let us think about this through the lens of structural engineering.
Why don't you...
Think about how we design skyscrapers in seismic zones.
Okay.
If you build a massive tower out of pure, rigid steel, locking every single beam into a perfectly consistent, unyielding posture.
It sounds strong.
It does. But what happens when a massive earthquake hits? The rigid building cannot absorb the kinetic energy.
Right.
It fights the reality of the shaking earth, and eventually the steel snaps and the building collapses.
Because the rigidity is the vulnerability.
Exactly. The rigidity is the vulnerability. But modern structural engineers understand that survival requires fluidity.
So what do?
They install these massive devices called tuned mass dampers.
What are those?
They are giant pendulums suspended near the top of the skyscraper. When the earthquake hits or typhoon winds batter the building, the pendulum swings in the opposite direction of the force.
Oh, wow.
The building is explicitly designed to sway. It yields to the present reality of the environment.
And the sway is what saves it.
Yes, the sway is what prevents the structure from snapping.
That is a phenomenal way to visualize it.
Right.
Foolish consistency is the rigid steel. It is the belief that if I just hold perfectly still and refuse to budge from my past position, I will demonstrate strength.
But when the environment changes...
Exactly. When the market shifts, when a relationship evolves, when new data arrives, that rigidity causes a catastrophic psychological collapse.
You just snap.
You snap. The self-reliant mind operates like the tuned mass damper. It allows for the sway.
It absorbs the new energy.
It absorbs the energy, adjusts its center of gravity, and remains standing precisely because it was willing to move.
So let us look at the specific earthquakes we face every day.
The everyday challenge.
Yeah. How do we practically restrict our own sway in real time? There is another piece of modern research in our sources.
From the Hone platform.
Yes, from Hone. They are a leadership and management training platform, and they delve deep into the biological realities of workplace.
Well, the researchers at Hone point out that when we feel the pressure to fit in, our brain is not processing it as a minor social inconvenience.
Oh, really?
Not at all. We silence our unique perspectives because our biology interprets social exclusion as a literal threat to our survival.
Like a physical threat.
Yes. Modern neuroimaging shows that the brain processes the pain of social rejection using the exact same neural pathways that it uses to process physical pain.
Wait, physical pain?
Yes, exactly the same neural pathways.
Right.
Specifically, the anterior cingulate cortex.
Wow.
When the group disapproves of you, your brain chemically experiences it as a physical injury.
That is staggering.
It is wild, right?
So when you're sitting in a conference room and you want to raise your hand and say, I know we've always run the marketing campaign this way, but I think the entire premise is flawed.
Your brain is panicking.
Your brain is flashing the exact same biological warning signs as if you were about to place your bare hand on a burning stove.
The mechanism is nearly identical. Your amygdala is firing, flooding your system with stress hormones.
That biological reality makes the act of intellectual bravery infinitely more impressive.
Oh, absolutely.
When you choose to speak a dissenting truth, you are literally using your prefrontal cortex to override your brain's ancient evolutionary alarm system.
That alarm system is screaming at you to blend in with the herd.
So you do not get left behind on the prehistoric savanna to be eaten by a predator.
Exactly. You have to intellectually recognize that a modern corporate office is not the savannah.
It feels like it sometimes.
Fair enough. But conformity here leads to organizational stagnation, not biological survival.
And the friction is just as intense, if not more so, in our personal lives.
Oh, the interpersonal dynamics are fascinating.
We drag these corpses into our living rooms and our marriages.
And we really do.
Think about the relational dynamics we navigate daily. We constantly hold on to old, rigid narratives about the people we love.
We box them in.
We do. You have a romantic partner, a sibling, or a parent, and years ago you calculated their orbit.
You made a decision about who they are?
Right. You decided, oh, my brother is the irresponsible one, or my spouse is the disorganized one.
And that becomes their permanent label.
Time passes. They do the grueling, invisible work of growing up. They change their habits.
But when they start acting responsibly or showing up differently, we often actively resist it.
We do. We get irritated. We make sarcastic comments.
Oh, look who's finally cleaning up.
Exactly. We try to force them back into the tiny psychological box we constructed for them.
Because their growth disrupts our perfectly consistent, comfortable, predictable view of the relationship.
That is a profound and devastating observation. We frequently weaponize consistency against the people we claim to love the most.
Yes. By demanding that they remain exactly who they were a decade ago, we are explicitly asking them to drag the corpse of their own memory just to make us feel secure.
We are prioritizing our own cognitive comfort over their human evolution.
Exactly. True relational maturity requires us to grant our partners, family members, and friends the grace to contradict their past selves.
We have to let them sway.
We have to do the hard work of interacting with the dynamic, complex person standing in front of us today, rather than safely interacting with the ghost of who they used to be.
And we enforce this rigidity on our own daily routines too, don't we?
Oh, all the time.
Think about the habits we refuse to change simply because that is how I've always done it.
The comfort zone.
Yeah, you see people perfectly executing a morning routine, a creative process, or a financial strategy that is clearly yielding diminishing returns.
They are exhausted, the results are poor, but they will not stop.
Emerson views this kind of repetitive, unthinking behavior as surrendering your identity to an artificial system.
You become a robot.
You are letting the habit dictate your reality rather than letting your present conscious intuition guide your actions.
It is the fundamental difference between being the master of your actions and being the subservient servant of your own history.
Habits are just tools.
Exactly. Habits and routines are merely tools. When a tool no longer serves the work, a self-reliant individual drops it immediately and constructs a new one.
But the conformist.
The conformist keeps hammering away at the wall with a broken tool because they are terrified. Someone might walk by and ask them why they changed their technique.
They would rather fail consistently than succeed unpredictably.
That is exactly it.
Let us pause here because I need to stress test this entire framework.
Please do.
If we follow this logic to its absolute extreme and we encourage people to abandon consistency entirely,
Right.
do we not just end up with a society full of flaky, unreliable people?
It is a valid concern.
If I change my mind every single day about my career, my relationships, and my moral values, how do I know I am actually engaged in profound personal growth and not just blowing wildly in the wind?
If everything is fluid, there is no structure at all.
Right.
That is the most critical question to ask. And it addresses the most common, dangerous pitfall when people first encounter Emerson's work.
What is the pitfall?
There's a massive structural difference between genuine, self-reliant growth and chaotic, reactive instability.
Okay, break that down for me.
The very first mistake people make on the path to liberation is confusing the two. True growth is anchored in something Emerson calls the aboriginal self.
The aboriginal self.
Yes. This is not a fleeting emotion. It is a deep, foundational, intuitive knowing. It is your core internal compass.
Okay.
When you change your mind based on the Aboriginal self, the change feels organic and deeply grounded.
It is not random.
No. It is a calculated response to new empirical evidence, a deeper layer of wisdom, or a much clearer understanding of your own intrinsic values.
And instability.
Instability, on the other hand, is a chaotic, frantic reaction to external trends.
Ah, I see.
It is changing your mind simply because you read a new trending article, or because a different demographic of people walked into the room and you desperately want to please them.
So, if I'm understanding the mechanism correctly, foolish consistency is forcing yourself to match the external expectations of the past.
Yes.
Instability is constantly shape-shifting to match the external expectations of the present.
Precisely.
But both of them share the exact same flaw. They are entirely driven by the outside world.
Yes, that is the core structural truth.
That is fascinating.
Neither of those states is self-reliant. They are both just different flavors of conformity.
Wow.
One conforms to history, the other conforms to the immediate crowd. But in both scenarios, you have outsourced your decision-making to other people.
This clarifies the danger of contrarianism, too.
Oh, contrarianism is a huge trap.
Because sometimes you see people who change their opinions very frequently, and they pride themselves on always disagreeing with the consensus.
They think they are being incredibly brave and self-reliant.
But if the danger of changing too often without internal clarity is that you are just reacting, then the contrarian is actually trapped in the same loop.
They absolutely are.
If you contradict yourself and society purely for the sake of being the rebel in the room, you are still letting society dictate your actions.
You are just taking whatever society says, running it through a negative filter, and doing the exact opposite.
Your compass is still entirely calibrated to the crowd. It is just pointing south instead of north.
Exactly. You have no true north of your own. That is a phenomenal distillation.
Thanks.
A true nonconformist is never someone who automatically rejects everything society does.
Right.
A genuine nonconformist is someone who consults their Aboriginal self before making a move. Sometimes that deep inner truth will align perfectly with the societal consensus.
And that is fine.
And when it does, the self-reliant person acts in accordance with society, not because society demanded it, but because their own rigorous internal logic confirmed it.
But when that inner truth contradicts society,
Or critically, when it contradicts their own loudly stated past opinions,
right,
they have the deep, unshakable nervous system regulation to act on the intuition anyway.
that is the goal.
The ultimate goal is to act from that unyielding bedrock of self-trust, regardless of whether the resulting action looks consistent or erratic to an outside observer.
So the million-dollar question is, how do we actually construct that bedrock?
We have to practice it.
How do we move from understanding this philosophically to actually rewiring our nervous system to tolerate this way?
Let us do an exercise.
Yes, I want to bring this conversation directly to you, the listener, right now, with a highly practical, rigorous application.
Okay.
We are calling this the growth reset exercise.
I love this.
This is not just a light journaling prompt. It is a mechanism to intentionally short-circuit the foolish consistency in your own life and practice operating from that Aboriginal self.
So walk us through the first structural step.
Well, the first step requires a level of radical, honestly, often uncomfortable honesty.
That is usually where it starts.
You need to identify one specific belief you have entirely outgrown.
Just one to start.
Yes. This requires you to look closely at your daily life and locate the areas of friction. The places where there is a distinct agonizing gap between what you are outwardly doing and what you inwardly feel.
Give me an example.
It could be a career trajectory you inherited from your parents' expectations that never actually fit your specific talents.
Fair comment.
Or it could be a self-limiting identity label you absorbed in high school, something like, I am not an analytical person, or I am fundamentally bad with money.
Or the labels we carry.
Right. Or it could be a specific strategic initiative you have been aggressively defending at work purely out of professional pride, even though you know in your gut, and the data clearly shows, that the strategy is failing.
So you have to identify it.
You must pinpoint that outgrown belief and drag it out into the harsh light of the thousand-eyed present.
And the friction of that realization can be incredibly intense.
Very intense. But once you identify it, the next step is to replace it with updated present tense thinking.
This is the exact moment you drop the corpse of memory.
Exactly. You look at that outgrown belief, you acknowledge the role it played in your past, and you consciously decide to embrace the present reality.
How would that sound in practice?
So if your old rigid belief was, I have to stay in this specific industry because I already invested a decade of my life into it,
The sunk cost.
your updated fluid thinking might be, my past experience deeply informs my perspective, but it absolutely does not imprison my future. I am fully allowed to pivot toward the work that actually engages my current intellect.
I see. You are actively writing the new code for your mental operating system.
Yes. And finally, we reach the most crucial step, and this is where the philosophy must become physical.
You have to take action.
You must take one specific, tangible action aligned with this new belief today.
Today.
Today. It does not need to be a massive life-altering event, but it must be a physical action in the real world.
And crucially, you must execute this action, regardless of whether it sharply contradicts your past behavior.
Right. If you updated your belief about not being an analytical person, your action today might be to enroll in a data science course and complete the first module.
Okay.
If you updated your belief about a failing workplace strategy, your action today might be to draft a candid, meticulously researched email to your executive team proposing a completely new direction.
Acknowledging that your previous stance was incorrect.
Yes. Why does the physical action matter so much?
Well, because the internal realization is not enough on its own.
Right.
Taking action in the real world is the only way to actually rewire the neural pathways in your brain.
Ah, back to the neuroscience.
Exactly. It proves to your amygdala that you can survive the perceived threat of breaking your orbit.
It reestablishes self-reliance not just as an interesting philosophical concept you heard on an audio program, but as a lived empirical reality.
Every single time you take an action that aligns with your present truth, rather than your past consistency, you are actively strengthening the muscle of intellectual bravery.
You are proving that the skyscraper can sway and still remain standing.
Yes. Furthermore, taking that physical action fundamentally teaches the people around you how to treat you moving forward.
That is a great point.
You are sending a clear, undeniable signal to your social ecosystem that your orbit is not fixed in stone. You are demonstrating that you are a dynamic, observing, evolving human being.
And there will be initial friction, yes.
Of course. But over time, the people who truly value your intellect and your spirit will stop demanding foolish consistency from you.
They will stop handing you the corpse of your memory.
And they will start anticipating and even celebrating your continuous growth.
So, what does this all mean as we synthesize the broad architecture of this deep dive?
It is time to recap. Let us distill the core mechanisms we have uncovered today. First, growth and rigid consistency are fundamentally incompatible.
You absolutely cannot become the next, more capable version of yourself while simultaneously fiercely protecting the old version.
The energy required to maintain the facade leaves no energy for actual evolution. They are mutually exclusive states of being.
Absolutely. Next, we must recognize that clarity is not a static destination.
Your understanding of your own mind, the nature of your work, and the complexities of the world will inevitably evolve over time as you acquire new data.
What was a crystal clear, undeniable truth for you 5 years ago might actually serve as a blinding limitation today.
So true. You must allow your clarity to be a living, breathing, adaptable framework.
Finally, your identity is not a fixed monument.
You are not a statue carved from stone. You are an incredibly complex biological and psychological system, and you are fully allowed to contradict your past self.
In fact, if you are living a rich, observant, profoundly self-reliant life, contradicting your past self is not a mistake.
It is practically a requirement for existence.
I will leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder long after this conversation finishes.
Okay, lay it on us.
If society, your colleagues, and your family currently compute your orbit based entirely on the safety of your past acts,
Right.
what entirely new, unimaginable orbit could you boldly launch yourself into tomorrow if you simply decided to drop the corpse of your memory?
Join us next time for Episode 5, Self-Expression, Why You Must Be Yourself Fully. Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.